Worst case scenario or best case scenario for the Bucks, how they structured those 1+1 deals. We take a look at what's sitting for them next summer on another mailbag on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis and Frank Madden. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Still some carryover here from all the mailbag questions that we got. So we're breaking this into a part 4. We alluded to a couple of them at the tail end of our show the other day. So let's start with those. One of them that was the most interesting to me, we've kind of tiptoed around this, Camille, you and I. So who better get the insights on than Frank? The John Horst special that we saw become a thing here this summer for obviously a couple of big names, but seemingly everyone the Bucks signed, the 1+1. So this comes to us from John, assuming Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. both opt out and everyone else opts in next season. Will they be a cap space team? Will they get exceptions back next offseason? And I'll add this. I think more importantly, and this is a big if, let's assume they're both incredibly impactful and they opt out. Let's start with this. Who do we think has a bigger market? Gary Trent Jr. or Kevin Porter Jr.?
Well, we've seen Gary Trent Jr. given what he's signed for the last two summers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Apparently the Bucks we're the only fan base / franchise that appreciates Gary Trent Jr. I guess. I think he had obviously more options.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have made more than the minimum a year ago. Who knows what might have been out there this summer? Could he have gotten more? But maybe there's a little bit of the wink, going into next summer when the Bucks will have early bird rights. But it's a good question. I mean, I think if Gary Trent starts and averages, 14 to 15 points per game on good shooting percentages, I think KPJ would have to have a pretty monster year, just because I think even if he has like a trouble-free year and kind of continues to, stay on the right path and not, fall into any issues off court or whatever it might be. I think there's just still going to be fundamentally teams that or would have questions about the off-court history, and then B, he's a ball dominant guy. Again, maybe he kind of tweaks his style a little bit this year. Probably has to a little bit playing with Giannis if he is the presumptive starter. But I don't think he's ever going to be as plug and play as Gary Trent Jr. So when I was doing, because the question that had come up about, what does the Bucks kind of summer look like? I just put in a placeholder and said, what if on average KPJ, GTJ, and AJ Green, what if they all basically end up with deals that average $10 million? So basically between the three of them, you're paying them $30 million. Mm-hmm. Divide that up how you want. But that doesn't seem like, an unrealistic scenario given what we've seen as the market for KPJ and Gary Trent these past couple summers. And AJ, I still would be inclined to think that he'll sign an extension. But if they do sign each of those guys to that sort of collective number, I was just sort of looking, I think you'd probably be in the $192 million range committed for next year, which, may seem large, but the tax threshold next summer is projected to be $201 million, and the first apron, $210 million. So, so that would leave you with, not quite $10 million under the under the tax threshold to then use your your non-tax pair mid-level to make additional signings, right? And that non-tax mid-level, probably call it, $15 million a year. So unfortunately, the second year player options on Taurean Prince and Gary Harris in particular, especially the Harris one, like, man, if that wasn't part of some wink to get Miles Turner here, since they share an agent, like, then I'd kind of be like, oh man, like, really? Like, what is Gary Harris bringing this roster, given you have, 4 or 5 other 6'4" guys that you want to play ahead of him? So we'll see. But yeah, the player options definitely hurt your flexibility. But I think if you do kind of just the quick math, if you assume even all of the player option guys opt out, and you have, as of now, at least Andre Jackson Jr. has a team option, Tyler Smith has a non-guaranteed number for next year. I think if you remove all those guys, you zero them out, you still get to like 147, which is 18 million under the salary cap level. And before you say, oh, great, you have $18 million in salary cap space, keep in mind that's for only 5 guys. So you'd have to take a bunch of roster charges, and you'd essentially be looking at the mid-level anyway. So it almost doesn't matter what it'll matter ultimately in terms of how much of the mid-level exception you could use in this scenario with those 3 guys signing for the 30 million total. So you couldn't use the full non-tax mid-level and stay under the tax in that scenario if all those guys opted in. But again, like, in terms of being able to free up cap space, you really don't have a path to, you don't really have a path to cap space unless you kind of start to get zany again, which again, they really can't be too zany anymore because there's limitations.
They're right up against it.
The limitation in the CBA is you can't, in any future cap year, you can't be projected to be more than 15% of your of the cap in dead weight. Or
I mean, they basically freed up like $2.5 million starting the next season. They could tack onto it. So yeah, if you got like an $8 million contract for 2 years, you can waive and stretch that. But that's the gist of it. And I mean, long story short, like, I don't expect to make a cap space team. For the number one thing that you mentioned, Frank, that wasn't in the question, is we assume there's going to be an AJ Green extension. So like, in this scenario, if everybody opts in but those 2 guys, then you're going to be under the cap. But that's keeping AJ Green out of the mix. He's not factored in right now. And, let's just say he's making $8 million more for that $10 million ish figure. That's going to put you over. So it's back to the exceptions that everybody loved and missed so much after 3 days of free agency next summer.
Well, and to be clear, like, if those guys opt out, you're still at like 162 million committed. So, again, like, you have to be essentially, like, the way I always tell people to think about it is,
but that's also with nothing for AJ Green.
Correct. Yeah. You basically, like, to create cap space, you have to be more than $15 million under the salary cap level, because otherwise you might as well operate as a quote unquote over the cap team and just use your $15 million non-tax mid-level. Again, there's some scenarios kind of where, because you also have, as the Bucks used this year, there is the room exception. So, there is an argument like, well, if you could get 10 million of quote unquote salary cap space, would it be better to renounce? Would it be better to work as a salary cap team, renounce the non-tax pyramid level, get the room exception, and then you have 10 million in cap space and 10 million roughly, a little bit less, and then the room exception versus 15 million in the non-tax mid-level, right? And there's kind of those games you can play, but the bottom line is, you need to be well under the salary cap level to have meaningful cap space. And the other piece too, just to be aware of, right? If you have 5 guys, then you need to basically take a bunch of what's called roster charges, which essentially are like I think the rookie minimum value for essentially your spots 6 through 12. So that is adding about 1.2, 1.3 million per roster spot on top of that. So if you got no guys on your roster, like you're probably wiping out, $7-8 million bucks, just kind of taking those sort of accounting hits as part of your cap calculation. So yeah, it's hard to create meaningful cap space, which is in part why the Bucks had to go to such extremes to create, the room to give Miles Turner his $25.3 million starting salary this past summer.
And one more thing for next offseason to think about too is that the Bucks do have a first round pick for 2026. It's all tied up. We don't know where it's going to be because it's all in the mix with the Pelicans and
probably their own pick.
That's what I'm thinking. It probably will be their own pick this upcoming season. So like that will be in the mix for the cap considerations, as well as maybe some moves that they might make next year, having a first round draft pick. And that would also, I believe, next summer be going into that final year of the Kuzma contract, assuming he is still on the roster at that time too. So there might be other avenues the Bucks could take to try to create more cap space next season, as well, in addition to if, those guys opt out. But just with the assets that will be available to them, plus, some contracts expiring, could open some more doors as well.
It's probably safe to assume that they're going to have somewhere around like the 15th or 16th pick next year, keeping their own pick if that's the case. One other interesting question that is very difficult because it requires us getting into the mind of someone else. We'll take a look at that one coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you're sharing accounts with a partner, Monarch Money helps you link all that and keep track of the spending for both of you, allowing you to set clear goals and plan some long-term financial health. Monarch Money makes it simpler than ever to review those finances and even set budgets and goals for the long haul, all in one place. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, so this one, I hate these questions.
By the way, Justin, I downloaded Monarch Money. My wife and I are using Monarch Money. Shout out to Monarch Money.
It's a nice app, for real.
Yeah, I got the
Frank and Camille. You guys can do the reads from now
on. I'm a legitimate endorser of this product. There you go.
I second that one. My household too. It really is easy to use with a partner, so they're not lying on that part.
When you like to spend, budgeting isn't necessarily fun, so that's why I've tried to shy away from it so far, but we might be getting there sometime soon. These are the questions that are tough, and I frankly hate because we're putting ourselves in the mind of someone else, but let's give it a whirl here. From Jack, do you think, unless an obvious major upgrade opportunity happens, can they keep Giannis happy long enough? Could the front office be waiting for next season where they have the expiring contract of Kyle Kuzma, as well as the ability to trade an extra first-round pick to make a big swing that would make them a legitimate contender, and I would assume in turn as well, keep Giannis happy? Who wants to start with this one?
I mean, the real answer is only Giannis will be able to tell you if he's happy with the direction. But like ultimately, from everything we've heard from Giannis over the years, when we heard from the Bucks, is that Giannis just wants to make sure that he's in a position where he feels like he can compete. And as long as he feels there's a chance to compete, and it's like, okay, let's keep doing this forward, because he's like, as long as Milwaukee's in on this and they want it as bad as I want it, like, then we're in alignment. So if the Bucks continue to make moves that at least have them competitive, and Giannis can see the outline of like, this could work, I can see how this works, I think that keeps him happy, because one thing we know about Giannis too is the loyalty aspect of it. How strongly he feels about it. We heard it after the Bucks won in 21 with him saying, I could have went somewhere else, like this could have been different, but I did it here. Like, this feels like this is what I was looking for. There's no feeling compared to this one, because it's like something I helped to build. And that's the position that the Bucks are going to be in again going forward here. And we talked about this upcoming season, like, what's the carrot that you're dangling outside of competition? But it's, hey, we're going to put the ball in your hands more often. We know you like to play this way. We heard him mention it last season when he was tasked with being the point guard of the team at times, with Dame being out. So it's like, the style of play that you like, you're going to be able to embrace that more often. We got guys around you that you went to war with last season in the playoffs, that you have some experience with, that you're ready to go for again. So like, if we can keep the situation here where it's competitive, and now adding the young legs, like if some of these younger guys can hit and you can keep them on the team long term and continue to build around them, like, I can see Giannis being happy with the roster, as long as it's like he can look at it and be like, yeah, we can go toe to toe with them. I don't have no qualms about that. But if a situation where the roster's looking Brooklyn Netish, where it's like, all right, we got to kind of, all right, we just trying to lose as many games as possible. We're trying to get the draft picks. We're trying to do this. Then I can see the happiness being out the door. But right now, I think the Bucks are on the right pathway forward to keep Giannis happy with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it before. Who knows what goes on in Giannis's mind? We're going to speculate, but honestly, I think a lot of it sort of just is also. I think first off, I think the national media over indexes on the championship or bust stuff. And I think that, Giannis has fed that by making comments about like how much he wants to win championships and blah, 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 which I don't think he's lying about that. But is he going to demand a trade to try to improve his chances of winning? Especially knowing that odds are you're probably not going to win wherever you go, right? You really would have to stack the deck somewhere to feel confident that, like, yeah, we have a really good chance of winning a championship. So, yeah, it's really hard. And I think for a guy like Giannis, it's going to be really hard to ever get to the point where you actually are willing to do that and, basically say, like, this has been my franchise, but I'm out, right? I'm going to, again, different scenario with Dame because Giannis has won a championship, but you have to think that if he's doing that calculus, like he has to look at what Dame went through and just say, man, grass is greener. Just be careful, right? Be careful what you wish for, what you expect is going to happen. So I think honestly, probably a lot of it's less like, are you strictly competing for championship? Probably a lot of it also is just kind of like the vibes of the team and the franchise. And, is he feeling like is he still having fun? Is he being perceived as, what's good about the Milwaukee Bucks versus, again, like it's kind of hard to think of a scenario where Giannis would be considered anything but, this incredible player who's, propelling the Bucks forward and the one thing that they have going for them at worst. But who knows, right? I mean, if he ever got into a situation where there was, a falling out with Doc Rivers or whomever was coaching, or obviously I think has an excellent working relationship with John Horst in the front office, but you never know, right? Like could something happen? Whether it's, they promise Thanasis like a roster spot and they don't give it to him. I mean, who knows, right? Like all that stuff can happen. I mean, we've seen obviously a bunch of guys that Giannis like treasured and valued as teammates have been shipped out. And, I think we've all kind of wondered like, oh, I wonder what Giannis feels about Chris Middleton getting traded. I wonder how Giannis feels about, X, Y, and Z, Brook Lopez leaving, etc. And every time it's happened, whether it was the Drew trade, Chris, Brook, that's been a scenario where at least you can look at it and say like, well, this helps either by bringing in, Dame Lillard or Miles Turner, or, with the Kuzma deal, it was,
Awesome,
yeah. Or with the Kuzma deal, obviously harder to kind of make the case from a playing standpoint, but obviously from a flexibility standpoint. So yeah, we don't know what Giannis will want, but again, you just sort of hope that he doesn't lose the joy. That, to me, that's sort of the thing is, can he play in a way that he's having fun, and maybe he isn't competing for championships, but I think if they made it to the second round, honestly, I think that would be, I think I've said it, like, I think that'd be a pretty good outcome for this season. And I think would speak volumes about probably how well Giannis has played and what he was able to do for this team.
Well, I mean, remember how we all felt in 2019 when going into that year and hiring Bud, 2018-19.
Yeah, win a playoff series.
The thought was, like home court advantage. Can we have that? And then you saw like, wow, we're actually pretty good. But even still, there is a decent amount of Bucks fans like the 1 seed. But what if they don't get out of the first round once again? That the way it felt to finally win a playoff series and get out of the first round. But I just think like we don't know, right? Only Giannis knows. And that's why even like we've talked about it on this show, all the reporting that comes out from the national media, it's funny to me because like, I don't think Shams or Brian Windhorst or anybody's making this stuff up and just pulling it out of thin air, but where's it coming from? Because I feel pretty confident in saying it's not coming directly from Giannis or his agent, knowing how close they keep things with everything in all of their dealings. So yeah, I think Giannis just approaches it with, I don't waste your time, so don't waste my time with what you're trying to do to be competitive. And if you show me, hey, we're bringing in Miles Turner and we're going to play this way and we're going to put the ball in your hands and we think we'll be better. Just like keep doing stuff like that. It's when it gets into like, well, yeah, we're probably going to be bad for 2 years. So just stick with us for that. Like that's the scenario that the Bucks desperately had to avoid to get back to that first question that we started with on, the Damian Lillard wave and stretch and why, as tough as it was, I just think for that reason, like you had to do it. Because like these 2 years are the most important. And if you can make yourself even marginally better and younger, you have to do that with the future of Giannis and his contract situation. And also we'd be remiss if we didn't, mention the obvious, Frank, of you going through any potential scenarios, which are hard to imagine. Like the Dallas scenario where all of a sudden Dirk Nowitzki is, Dirk's great, but like now we got this Luka guy. I mean, the Bucks, they're staring right at that with Chris Livingston when he starts to develop.
We have now entered the Chris Livingston segment of the mailbag here. Justin is.
By the way, let me ask the question. Justin's got his 90s Brewers hat on. I don't know, obviously, to what extent our listeners are all Brewers fans. I'm guessing there's at least a sizable portion. Someone was making the comment about this being the most fun, like Wisconsin sports team since X. I think the first year, so I think the peak Bucks regular season team was the 52-8 start in the lockout in the COVID shortened year.
Yeah.
That said, I think from just a like pure regular season enjoyment perspective, I think the first Bud year that you're alluding to, Justin, is pretty up there. I mean, I think that to me, the Brewers thing has been like more magical, in part because it's like they don't have a Giannis, and not that it's easy to translate sort of stardom from one sport to another, but like it is such a like kind of scrappy, fun, interesting kind of team. But I would argue, like, I mean, it's more fun having an MVP candidate at the center of your team, like the superstar, and obviously like Jacob Mizrachi and Jackson Chorio like bring dimensions of really fun sort of young player vibes, which certainly the Bucks have not delivered to us in God knows how long, since basically Giannis's rookie year. But I do think that 18-19 season, like the for reasons that you mentioned, because they hadn't gotten past the first round, and Giannis hadn't gotten to the level that he did that year. Like that was a pretty awesome year. I mean, they were the best record in the league. Like they did what the Brewers are doing right now, and obviously, hopefully, the Brewers go a little bit further than that Bucks team.
Started 7-0.
Yep.
That next year, it's the most fun since that next year, though, because that was what, 18 game win streak that started after that buzzer beater loss to the Jazz in Utah, where it felt like this is finally the year they're going to win in Utah. And then wasn't it Joe Ingles that hit the game winner? And then an 18 game win streak, they dismantled the Hornets in Paris, didn't lose back-to-back games until like the last 2 games before things were shut down. Like that was kind of like what we're experiencing with the Brewers now. It's different with every day in baseball, but like that was the vibes with that Bucks team, where I was talking about it with somebody else last year when we were kind of comparing years of like, I just remember that year, like I legitimately showed up to this building and never expected to lose. Like you thought every single team they played, they were going to win.
And I think part of that too was that the expectations weren't there on the team. Like they started building as you saw them winning, but it was kind of like, okay, can we just win a playoff series? Can we win a playoff series? But you're seeing them build it, and you're seeing Giannis take that step forward to like, oh, we have an MVP, and not just an all-star, not most improved. Like we have an actual MVP here. And then seeing that and the excitement around like what this team is growing into being is always fun. Like then we start playing with expectations, that weight's a little bit heavier. And those seasons like still have fun moments in them. But it's different having the expectations than it is to play with like you're in the chase still, and it's just kind of like you're upcoming.
And we'd be remiss too not to mention the true fun parts of that season when we were treated to the Bonzi Colson and the Tim Frazier games. What, like the 53-minute game from Tim Frazier, and yeah, like that was pure magic that they were working with there. One other
no free hamburgers though. So edge Brewers.
We got a ton, so thank you to everyone. We got a ton of Chris Livingston questions, but I'm gonna pivot it and replace his name with someone else on one final question. We'll get to that coming up after this. Yeah, a lot of Chris Livingston's chance. What does he need to show? We got a decent amount of those, but in light of what happened last weekend, Frank, we didn't get a chance to talk with you about this. Is it safe to assume the 15th man on the roster is going to be Amir Coffey?
You know, I feel like I've had plenty of Bucks thoughts, but I really haven't put any of them out anywhere. But I did tweet that kind of Camille, we were getting at it, sort of the idea of the hierarchy of Ajax, Livingston, and Tyler Smith. I always want to call him Tyler Smith, but those 3 guys. And you know, the gist of what I was saying was the Coffey signing, I think, certainly puts like the crosshairs are going to be on Ajax because of that partial guarantee, which doesn't fully guarantee until I think the start of the regular season. So, I mean, again, like you can certainly look at that and say, well, the front office has put a target on Ajax because of that partial guarantee. That Amir Coffey is going to be targeting that roster spot. We'll see if any other guys are added who might compete for that spot. I mean, I've been looking at this, sort of waiting for a Thanasis shoe to drop here. He's back playing basketball with the Greek national team. So that's kind of also hanging out there. But obviously the Coffey deal is non-guaranteed, so it's not like they have made any big bet on him. But he's 6'7" and he shoots threes well, and that's about it. I'm not going to say he's, you know, otherwise some very dynamic player, but on a team where we all look at it and say like, your small forward depth isn't great, you know, he obviously kind of checks that box in a more direct way than Ajax does. And just in terms of like just normal archetype of player that you'd want to have around Giannis. But I mean, I'll kind of reiterate what I had said previously. Like, I mean, Justin, I'll say it to your face. Like, well, I mean, I don't think Chris Livingston's going to play for this team this year. I don't think Tyler Smith's going to play for this team this year. So then you start asking the question of like, okay, so what's your projection with these guys, right? If you're going to have guys, in Smith's case, 2nd year, Livingston's case, 3rd year, basically just kind of ride the bench all year, you have to have some thesis about a development, you know, trajectory with them. beyond just like, well, they got a chance to be a like end of the bench role player, right? So in that regard, like if you think Amir Coffey can be a ninth man, then well, that's probably better than, like if we're realistic about, any of these other guys, like what they're going to be. You'd probably take Amir Coffey versus, what's behind door Ajax, door Tyler Smith, door
number
Chris
24.
Livingston. Exactly. Door 7, whatever these guys' numbers are. These actually no, KPJ took number 7. So yeah. But that's kind of my take. I will say this. I mean, it would be very weird if they waive Chris Livingston, re-sign Chris Livingston to a guaranteed contract, and then waive him again. So I mean, I think the front office is certainly telegraphed to an extent what you would expect will happen. Chris is a clutch guy. Gary Trent is a clutch guy. Is Gary Trent taking less money at all connected to any of that? Like, I don't know. We can put on our tinfoil hats, but I would say Tyler Smith. I would be. Let's just say Tyler Smith probably has more to worry about than Chris Livingston. Would be my view.
Yeah, I mean, we're only mentioning we in the broad sense that everybody's talking about this Ajax just because of the contract situation. Mm-hmm. But to your point, I mean, as critical as I know I have been, and we've all been on Andre Jackson Jr., when I look at those three guys, if you tell me who do you trust if somebody goes down and this guy's going to play decent minutes for 3 games even, it's not even close. It's Andre Jackson Jr. Over those guys. So that's what really complicates this.
Yeah, in large part because we've seen Ajax have those minutes. We've seen him be effective in the NBA Cup final game against the Thunder. We saw him play that defense, and that's a skill set that we can point to for Andre Jackson Jr. Now, there might be some who want to nitpick it and say, like, he still needs to clean up the perimeter or point of attack defense, but we know it's a skill set that he has to play point of attack defense. Now, Doc has pointed out some of the other areas defensively where he wants to continue to see growth from Andre Jackson Jr., like his coverage off ball and decision-making that he's doing there, but we've seen him do it. So we haven't seen Chris Livingston, in those minutes. We've seen him now have a pretty good summer league, but how does that translate over? We don't know yet. We've seen Andre Jackson Jr. have a bad summer league or unfinished summer league last year where he got hurt and didn't continue to play. But then you see him again getting those opportunities in the regular season because he does have that NBA skill set of point of attack defense. If Chris Livingston comes into training camp and he's locking everything down, he's knocking down shots, like then you can look at him like, okay, well, maybe you do get the playing time over an Andre Jackson Jr., but I don't think that there's going to be anything that we primarily see. But it's more so going to be the things that happen behind the closed doors now at this point of unless he's like blazing in camp and you can't help but say like it's undeniable. Like I do think Andre Jackson Jr. out of those 3 guys, him, Livingston, and Tyler Smith has the best pathway forward, even with the contract situation. But it's just the fact that the contract situation brings attention to him because it's like, well, why would you do that? If you weren't, just wanting the flexibility of being able to move off of the contract if something else comes about.
Going to be a very interesting camp and preseason to keep an eye on a handful of guys and see if this is basically a carryover from Summer League. Continue to submit your questions. You can tweet them at any of the 3 of us or send them to that email address that we've put out there a couple of times. You can find it on the Locked On YouTube page as well. And we'll tackle those either the final month here as we lead into training camp and the preseason or early on in the regular season. That will do it.
I think we're going to get some Giannis exhibition basketball here pretty soon, I think, right?
Yeah.
So
everything's cleared. He's good to go.
Yeah. I'm shocked that the Bucks didn't prevent Giannis from playing for his national team. That seemed like that would have been a real obvious play when the guys...
Talk about keeping them happy. Like, no, we're not going to let you do the thing that you love to do and represent your home. No.
We're gonna.
Well, and we can see TA warm up too. Is this a gradual on ramp?
Exactly. We're gonna look for a rake to step on and just screw this up. Maybe that would be the argument. Camille is like, no, we didn't want you to play because we wanted Thanasis to have more
We
of a
really wanted
more
him
of a
to shine.
runway to shine,
Yeah.
so we can get a better scout on whether he's ready.
Like,
to come
look,
back.
we saw his comments over. I don't necessarily want to join the Bucks. I want to carve out my own path. So we just figured, hey, do it on Greece. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
That'll do it for this marathon episode of another edition of the Mailbag. For Camille and Frank, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again on Locked On Bucks.